if you have a small business or going to have one soon, I want you to listen to David Braun here. Now he's an expert in mergers and acquisitions, and he's got great advice here about how you could grow any small business by adding on other small businesses with it. Right. So the objective is to create a business for the long term that enhances the opportunities for your customer. In other words, how do you provide a better product, service, or add-on, or whatever to give a better product to your customer? And you could do that by going into partnership or acquiring or whatever other small businesses. And it can be done for almost anything. And this seems to be the way to grow now in our country. We all can't be experts in everything, right? But we have to give more value to the customer, and we could do that by acquiring other businesses. Watch him and listen and see how even you could do it as a small business. Okay, so David Braun, and you're the author of Successful Acquisitions. Well, I'm trying to think of how could my little company grow, and be more successful by being buying another company. I thought it was only for the big companies bought people.
Yeah. Well, what you're saying is what a lot of owners think too. Yeah. Owners of small businesses, and I think one of the things that folks need to keep in mind is that 97% of acquisitions are small to mid-sized companies.
Wow, 97%.
97%.
So we only talk about the top 3%.
Yeah, exactly. Because those are the ones that get the news and the splash, and they're the big deals. But how many $10 billion deals are there to be? How many $1 billion deals are there?
You only want one, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But I think for a lot of owners, they think about acquisition as though it's something that only Fortune 500 companies do. Well, Fortune 500 companies didn't start out as Fortune 500 companies. And the other part is that in many cases, it's not so much about the size.
Size does not matter?
Size does not matter.
Great. I was always telling everybody that.
Speed is what matters.
Speed, I see.
Speed
Good.
is what matters. And part of it is in many cases, it's an ability to really think differently about your business. Let me explain that a little bit. We use the word acquisition. That doesn't mean you have to only go out and buy 100% of a company. Okay? There's lots of different ways that you can structure transactions. You can buy a part of the company, or you can buy a majority interest but still keep a minority interest in that. There's lots of different things that we can think about. But here's the other more interesting point. How can you create your company to be more valuable by acquiring other businesses or product lines or brand names or intellectual property? And so the ones that are really successful at this are not the ones that necessarily just know about the transactional part, the legal and the financial part. It's about the strategy part. So what kinds of things would make my company different and better and more special because I had this other capability, location, product line, whatever it may be. And so it's first of all being able to really come up with what is the vision that I have for my company that's going to make me more valuable to my customers. Maybe not only today, but maybe down the road from today. And then being able to figure out who are those companies out there that are going to make the most sense in creating the transaction. So let's not start with a transaction. Yeah. Let's start with the vision of what kinds of companies could really help my company be
you want to say what kind of business would make my business better, more profitable, more bigger, and more worthwhile, huh?
Yeah. So let me give you a common example that we see today is, the customer may want to buy some products and services and ingredients and capabilities and designs. You can think of all different kinds of scenarios of that, right? Well, one of the things that you can do, for example, that's pretty powerful in this day and age is be the aggregator. Be the easy button. Be the easy button for your customers so that you can become in effect, the one-stop shop. And that doesn't mean you have to own each of those pieces. You may own some of them, but you may have contractual relationships through an acquisition. In other words, you might acquire the rights, to be the aggregator.
Right.
But think about how you can make yourself more valuable, whether it be a consumer or business to business. But, you make it easier because you become the one-stop shop for all of those pieces that someone may want.
So if I'm going into to buy a new suit and the guy doesn't have ties, he should have a deal with the tie maker.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be buying out the tie maker. It could just be buying part of the tie maker.
Or having an acquisition of the rights to be able to sell his ties on your name.
So that's called mergers and acquisition, having
Absolutely.
the rights to sell it? Really?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Never
Yeah,
thought
so
of it that way.
Yeah, see, and that's where I think that, to me, if there was one thing that your audience heard out of our conversation is, don't just be intimidated in thinking it's big acquisitions means I got to go through this complicated transaction of buying this company, like Hewlett Packard buying Compaq, right? Those are not how a lot of these. I mean, there are certainly those, but there are other ways of being able to grow your company by buying other companies, and buying doesn't mean you have
say
to
if I was a web designer, I could make a deal with
content provider.
What? Internet provider. Yeah, and be
or
call that a mergers and acquisition, and I get a piece of that.
Yeah, or how about a call center? So let's say you're the web designer for companies. What they also need is the fulfillment side.
Yes.
So you can handle the call center and the fulfillment, and you may buy some of those pieces, or you may partner with them in some form or fashion contractually. But you now make your company more valuable to the customer because you have the ability to deliver all that.
So that's part of mergers and acquisitions. See, I'm an old guy. I don't think new stuff is as easily as well. That's great. I mean, really, you're making it easier for the customer. So what would make it? To me, that's what you're saying is what would be added to your business that would make it easier to your customer that you don't have to develop in house.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And let me give you kind of an analogy to have your folks kind of plant a seed for them. Think about HR, human resources, hiring people. All of your listeners are going to, at some form or fashion have employees or people that they work with. And so, in some cases, they need to hire a salesperson. In some cases, they need to hire an accountant. In some cases, they need to hire an operations person. But in some cases, they may outsource pieces of that, right? That's why Paychex does payroll for companies.
Exactly. I've been using them for years,
So why not do the same thing in terms of how people grow their business? Right. So in other words, I may need a Paychex to help me run my business. Doesn't mean I have to go acquire that, all that talent. Doesn't mean I have to go buy all those.
Right. I see.
You know what I mean?
To say. Yeah.
But you can get the benefit of that, and so your employees still get the benefit of your relationship with Paychex. But we think about that for our services. But why don't we think about that for our customers?
Right.
How do we make it easier for our customers? And that's really where I think smaller companies get stuck because they get intimidated because of the legal, financial, and all that kind of side of it.
The lawyers come. The lawyers are coming. The lawyers are coming.
Everybody run and hide.
The lawyers are coming.
But tell everybody to just kind of park that for a minute. Focus first on what's the vision that you can provide for your customers.
How could you make your business more? What piece could be added to you to make your business more important? And that's a mergers and acquisitions. Right?
Absolutely.
Right. Well, that's great. We're glad you're here, David. David Broad is the author of SuccessfulAcquisitions.net. Get there, get the book, find out more about this stuff that even you can be a fat cat, no matter what size business you have, and be involved in getting important things for your business. To compete in the future, we're all going to have to do that, right?
Absolutely.
And with skills that, we can't do it all. We need help. Thank you, David.
Thank you for having me.
See, the name of the game is changing, right? If you don't change nowadays, you ain't going nowhere because the world is changing around you, and you better grab that train or it's just going to pass you by. And one way to do that is by hooking up with other, similar products or other services that will make your product better to the customer. And there's a lot of ways to do that. So I hope you got something out of that.